You are looking at the UK album cover. I want you to just have a look at the figures at the bottom because at the end of this little video you'll see that the US album cover, although very, very similar, had a different picture used on it at the bottom there. So you see all the guys running, one of them's falling. It's different on the US one. For some reason, the US guys, they wanted to use a different picture. This was just a picture of the side one of the album on the Mer label, and again this was the one used in the UK. And you'll see at the end that even this was slightly different too. On the inside of the album we used one of the pictures of a park in London that we had been to, and we came across this park that had all these deck chairs set out ready, I think, for some kind of afternoon concert, and they were just there. There was nobody in attendance. We had a photographer with us, so we all sat down there and they took the picture. It's just a collage of other pictures of the band in and around London. We went to Camden Lock for quite a portion of the day, and the guy just snapped away the pictures. This was the front of the EMI studio. I really don't know where that studio is, except to say that it's in the middle of London, and I remember it well because it was the Queen's Jubilee year and there's lots of celebrations going on. You're going to see Norman Miller on the left here. Norman was our manager, and I got to say he did very well for us. In retrospect, looking back, he really got us into some good places and tried to do a great job for us. He, I believe, now lives in the US. I know he married Sheila Walsh. These are the guys in the recording studio. We had quite a few couches and places to veg out. You know, when you're recording, there's a lot of time when you're really not actually working, and so you're sitting around for a lot of it, listening to playbacks or waiting for the engineers to do their job. There's Alwyn. I think he's just listening to some of the playback there. At first, of course, you do that all the time, and then after a week of doing that, you get pretty fed up. And it sounds like it would be a lot of fun, but there's a lot of waiting around. We did have a room in the studio, which was really on a basement floor. You went down the steps, and there were several rooms in the basement of the studio, and it was really pretty well equipped when I think back on it. It was a room where you could buy new strings. Norman's a real stickler for keeping in the tune and putting new strings on the guitar. Every gig that we ever did, Norman would spend some time putting new strings on, stretching them, just so that everything was perfectly in tune. It's around the corner from the studio there was a little cafe, and if we really wanted a break, we'd go up there and grab a cup of tea. Tom Robinson was recording around the same time, and so sometimes we would meet at this cafe with those guys too. Ray Davis and the Kinks were around. They were doing some recording at the same time. These are the guys in the engineering. There's John, Roger, and Rod. They were great. I mean, this was all done on the old 3-inch big analog tape. And those guys, they were really good at what they did. When I think back about how professional they were excellent. And John there was on the left, was in charge of the studio, and generally did a fantastic job for us. This is Nick inside the drum booth, and he would have to put down a drum track and just listen to a guide track through the headphones. And so at one point he was very busy. We probably spent several days just doing the drum tracks. And then we did all the guitar tracks. So you see here Norman with the headphones on. Norman is such a great player. You always had great confidence in what he was going to do because he had such good taste. And when I listen to what he did now, I think I appreciate it even more than I did at the time. So when we went to do the recording, you can imagine Norm working real hard just to get it absolutely right. I learned a lot from Norm, just about music in general. We had an orchestra on several of the tracks. These guys were from the London Philharmonic, and they were actually used on some of the Beatles' work, like I Am a Walrus. So we didn't have the whole orchestra, but we had a string section come in and They packed out the room there. Roger, who you see there, actually charted all the music. I have the music still in my possession. He charted out all the parts. We put those parts on the stands for the cellists and the violinists, and they played them right off. We had I think a once through, and they played the whole thing straight. Those guys were great. There's me at the piano. We had a beautiful grand piano in there, so most of these parts were put down on the grand piano or the Fender Rhodes, or I had one of the very first little synthesizers. It was a Roland, and it was a monophonic, so that means you could only ever play one note at one time, and when you look at the keyboards available now, that was pretty tough to do. There's me actually putting a part down on the Moog, and that was just the left side of the main desk, and I don't know, we're getting some laughter out of what I'm doing, but I guess that's the story of my life. There I am playing at the Fender Rhodes. Most of the parts in Alwyn Warband were played on the Rhodes, and the Rhodes is a very distinctive sound. We had a good practice room in this studio, so at any time we could go back and just go over parts. That's my orange amplifier there, you can just see in the forefront, which was with me for many years. The guys were helped out with we had quite a few songs where we did a lot of oohs and ahs, and we wanted to build up the sound, so those two were in the studio quite a bit, just doing a lot of backing parts, and then spending a lot of time listening. That's what it is. Good engineering is listening and figuring out if you've got all the parts right. This is a picture of Tony laying on the floor of the studio. I think you'd find all these different positions to listen to the tracks. And I don't remember exactly how long we were in the studio, but I can tell you it was a long time, and it was a great experience. There's Tony Hudson on bass and Norman Barratt playing guitar. Sometimes we kind of do parts together just so that everybody would play together. Now you're going to see the US actual picture on the album. Again, a different color, slightly different layout. I'm not sure why they wanted to do that, but I have a copy of both in my house, and maybe the last one. There's the second side. And you're about to see the US album cover, and we're going to finish with that. Prize was recorded in 1976 in June, and this is the US cover here. You see the figures along the bottom. It's a different picture. We're in a different order, and that's about it for the recording of the album.